Hello, and welcome to the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences information session. My name is Bill Harlow, and I am the Assistant Dean for Weinberg College Admissions and Undergraduate Research. I'm going to spend the next several minutes talking to you about the undergraduate academic experience within the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. So when Northwestern opened in the fall of 1855, what is today known as the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences was the entirety of Northwestern. In the next 50 years or so, leading up to just past 1900, the university added 5 other undergraduate schools. But ever since its founding, the College of Arts and Sciences has remained at the core of the undergraduate experience at Northwestern. And indeed, all Northwestern undergraduates today need to take classes in the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. And there's a reason for that. At its core, Northwestern University at the undergraduate level is a liberal arts institution. So what do I mean by liberal arts? The liberal arts in Western higher education date back to classical antiquity, to ancient Greece and Rome. Those civilizations developed language and mathematical arts that basically dealt with how we use words and numbers. Those arts were codified over the centuries, and they were passed down through the medieval university in Europe to colonial colleges in America, and ultimately to the research universities and colleges that we have in the United States today. This is relevant because liberal arts help us understand our world and our place within it. They really address questions of knowledge, both pure and applied, and they provide the grounding for all other academic pursuits, be those intellectual or pre-professional in nature. So within the college, we have 3 main curricular areas. One of those areas would be the humanities and the fine arts. Second area would be the social sciences. And the third area would be the natural sciences and mathematics. And so you can see how our areas cover that full range of how we use words and how we use numbers, to go back to that classical reference. What this means as a practical matter is that we have a broad range of classes and majors within the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. Indeed, we have over almost 50 majors available to our undergraduate students, and we have many minors that are mixed in as well. And so you can take everything from physics to poetry, from statistics to fine arts, and really anything that falls in between those disciplines. Some of our most popular majors include economics, neuroscience, data science, psychology, political science, and others. One of the things, too, that I think is important to note is that students who are in the other 5 undergraduate schools at Northwestern, and those schools are engineering, journalism, music, communication, and education and social policy. Students who are in those schools are going to have to take classes within the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. Conversely, students who are in the Weinberg College have the option of taking classes in those other 5 undergraduate schools, although it's not required that you do so. Whether you choose to do so or not, one of the things that we think is particularly compelling about being in the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences is that you will have friends, roommates, dorm mates, classmates, etc., who are going to be going into engineering or teaching or journalism, music, and education, and so on. And so there's this incredible academic and intellectual diversity that you find at Northwestern that we think is extremely compelling. Now, it is certainly true that some of our sister institutions, particularly in the Big Ten, are going to offer many of the academic options that we have as well. But it's also the case that that often comes with much larger undergraduate student bodies at much larger institutions. My point in mentioning that is not to make some sort of a value judgment. It's not better or worse, but it is different. And so the academic experience that you'll get at Northwestern, while still having all of these options, is in a sense going to be smaller and more personalized for you than it would be at some other institutions. And we hope that that's one of the things that you'll take away from your understanding of Northwestern, is that we do offer this broad range of academic and intellectual options while still maintaining a relatively small academic environment in terms of our overall enrollments. The average class in the arts and sciences, uh, whether it's freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, is going to be about 1,100 students or a little less. So they're just over 4,000 undergrads into Weinberg College. There are about 8,000 undergrads at Northwestern overall, those other 4,000 or so being in those other 5 undergraduate schools that I also mentioned a moment ago. In terms of how our academic experience for undergraduates is structured, we are on the quarter system at Northwestern, and we have been since World War II, so it's no longer an experiment. The way that it works at Northwestern is that we, as a general rule, expect students to take 4 classes per quarter 3 times a year. So 4 classes in the fall quarter, 4 courses in the winter quarter, and 4 courses in the spring quarter for a total of 12 each year. We do have a summer quarter, and that's why we say we're on quarters rather than trimesters. But generally, students are not at Northwestern for academic credit during the summer. There will be some instances where that's the case. And indeed, there may be many students who are on campus during the summer doing other things like academic research. But generally, students are not earning academic credit towards graduation during the summer, with some exceptions. So usually 12 classes per year times 4 years of college equals 48 courses or course slots, if you will. We require 45, not 48, for our Bachelor of Arts degree. What students might do with those extra 3 course slots, the time that they would take, is spread them, for example, over the senior year, 1 each quarter. Take a reduced course load in each of those quarters, and then as a result, have space in their year and in their day for engaging, for example, in independent scholarly research of some kind. And so that might be leading up towards a senior thesis or something like that. In other words, there's time within a regular 4-year curriculum to engage in research and have that be a part of your undergraduate career if that's something that you choose to do. And we think that often that's going to be really a great capstone experience for our undergraduates if they want to go that route. Whether you choose to do that or not, again, it's 45 courses for our Bachelor of Arts degree. Now, the BA is a traditional liberal arts degree. We do not offer a Bachelor of Science within the College of Arts and Sciences. Occasionally, that's confusing to students. They'll say, well, I want to major in biology or chemistry, maybe I'm pre-med, something like that, or I'm interested in one of the other natural sciences. Why wouldn't that be a Bachelor of Science? Really, by traditional academic practice in the United States, a Bachelor of Science is a pre-professional degree. And so it tends to have more of a focus than the Bachelor of Arts does, in the sense that it'll be directed ultimately towards a discipline or a profession. Within the college, the Bachelor of Arts covers all of the areas that I've already mentioned before. And so as a result, students have the opportunity to pursue humanities and fine arts, social sciences, or natural sciences and mathematics, and still all be receiving a Bachelor of Arts degree. So a BA is the one degree that we offer, and it shouldn't be a concern, regardless of what you're interested in majoring in ultimately, that it is a Bachelor of Arts. That's a traditional liberal arts degree, and we and our academic peers tend to offer the BA exclusively. So as I noted before, we have almost 50 majors across the arts and sciences. They vary widely in terms of requirements. Some have many required classes, others have, by comparison, fewer. And it's difficult to say how many classes you'll have in a particular major, not only because it'll depend on what major you choose, but also because sometimes students will bring AP or IB credits with them from high school, and they may apply those toward their undergraduate major. Most of our majors are disciplinary in nature, meaning that they're associated with a traditional academic discipline like history or philosophy or biology, et cetera. But we also offer some adjunct majors. An adjunct major is essentially a highly interdisciplinary major where you're drawing on different disciplines in order to create an intellectually coherent major out of those. Students are welcome to have an adjunct major in the college, but if you do, then you are going to be required to have a second major, and that second major would have to be one of our disciplinary majors, not a second adjunct major. So every student will have at least one major that has to be disciplinary in nature. They may have a second major if they wish, and that second major may, if they wish, be an adjunct major. We're often asked, well, how do most students treat the major requirement? About 50%, about half of our students have one major. And that, of course, means that about the other half will have two majors. Um, in terms of how to think about that, I think that there are cases where a second major can make a lot of sense. Uh, a good example might be, let's say, I mentioned pre-med students earlier. Let's say you are a pre-med student, and so you have a traditional pre-med major like biology or chemistry. You might want to add a second major or maybe a minor in an area like philosophy so that you have an ethical coursework and background that you're bringing to your academic experience in addition to the science. That would be an example where a second major might make sense. I think where a second major might not make sense would be if you said, well, my roommate has two majors, so I ought to have one, as if two is always better than one. I don't think that's always true. And indeed, I would argue that sometimes majors are a bit like prescription medicine. You shouldn't necessarily take more than the recommended dose. So we do require students to have one major. If you have an adjunct, you'll have to have two majors, and the second won't be an adjunct, but generally it's one major. And of course, the major represents the depth component of our undergraduate curriculum, where you really are studying something in depth, a discipline or a broader range of disciplines, and really delving into those deeply. Information about all of our majors changes consistently in terms of the classes that are being offered, the faculty who are teaching them, and so on. And so what we recommend is that students go online and look up our majors individually, where you'll find the most up-to-date information in terms of requirements, faculty, classes offered, calendars, advising, and so on. And while I'm on advising, I do want to say a couple things about how advising works in the college. All of our students are going to take a first-year seminar, and I'll talk about that more in a moment. But the first-year seminars are going to be taught in the fall quarter of your first year as a Weinberg undergraduate. All of those are taught by faculty. When you conclude the fall quarter, you're going to be assigned a Weinberg College advisor. They too are all on the faculty. And that person, that Weinberg College advisor, is going to stick with you all the way up through graduation. So they'll be there through your sophomore, junior, and senior years as well. Once you declare a major, which you have to do by the end of your sophomore year, you'll be assigned a major advisor as well. If you choose to have two majors, you'll be assigned two major advisors. We also offer pre-professional advising for law, medicine, and business. We have a career advancement center. And so overall, there's a great deal of advice, counsel, and guidance that's given to our undergraduates in the college. We think that's really important. That's part of what you're paying for and should expect in a really strong liberal arts college setting is really strong advising. It's important to recognize that as a result, it means that you will have a first-year advisor. You'll also have a college advisor. You'll have at least one major advisor. And then you might have additional advisors in addition to that. So you'll have at least three advisors along the way. And the college advisors, I think, in order to note one other important point, are really there to help you think about the full breadth of what you're doing as an undergraduate. So they're kind of the macro overview person. They're the person with whom you might have a conversation along the lines of, well, what is it that you do think you want to major in? Perhaps that's changed since you applied when you were a high school senior. Maybe you want to do a Chicago Field Studies internship for credit. Maybe you want to do study abroad. In other words, the college advisor is going to help you fashion all of these things together, help you make the most out of the 4 years of your time as an undergraduate within the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. I mentioned the first year seminar, and so I'm going to talk for a few minutes now about our degree requirements. Northwestern has had degree requirements for many decades. The degree requirements that I'm describing are going to be in effect for students who are starting in the fall of 2023 and later. All of those students going forward are going to have to take, as I noted before, a first-year seminar. And this first-year seminar, which will be very limited in terms of enrollment, the number of students in class, will be required of all students in the college. The seminar is going to help acclimate you and orient you to what it means to be a college student in general, and also a student within Weinberg in particular. All students in the college are going to complete that first year seminar in the fall quarter of their first year. So that's going to start from the very beginning. In addition to that, we also are going to be having a revised writing requirement. This requirement is going to take place also generally during the first year of your undergraduate experience at Northwestern. You will have to take one writing requirements seminar during the first year after the first quarter, if it fits into your schedule. Some students may take it later than that, but generally we're going to be looking at students taking this writing requirement either in the winter quarter of first year or in the spring quarter of the first year. We also are going to have an advanced expressions requirement. This is a requirement that's going to deal with advanced oral and written expression, and it will consist of one 300 level course that you'll take that meets the specific goals that have been laid out by the college. That class will most likely take place not in your first year, but rather either in your second or fourth years as an undergraduate student. An additional requirement that we have for our degree is proficiency in a language other than English. We want to be clear that proficiency is not the same as fluency. So proficiency we describe as or define as 2 years of college level work. In other words, 6 quarters altogether. All of our students are going to have to demonstrate proficiency in a language other than English. And generally, students are going to be able to do this in one of 3 ways. One way is to continue with the foreign language that you've been taking in high school. And so we have many students who've been taking French or Spanish or German or whatever in high school, and they're going to continue with that language up through the proficient level once they get to Weinberg College. Now, we're not going to have you start over in that language. You would continue at the level that you're bringing from high school, and that's determined through placement exams or AP or IB scores. And so you may have 1 quarter left to do, you may have 2, you may have 6. That will be determined once you get here. A second way that students approach the language requirement other than English is that they'll start a new language. They may well say, well, French or German in high school was great, but I'm really interested now in taking Mandarin or Arabic, or I want to be a classics major and I'm going to do classical Attic Greek. Whatever route you choose to go, in this instance, where you're starting a new language, we would require you to take 6 quarters, i.e. 2 years, college level work in order to reach proficiency in that language. And then the third approach that students will take is basically they say, well, yes, I do want to be proficient in a language other than English, but I'm interested in taking as little of that language as I may need to because I have other academic interests. So students will then take one of 2 approaches. One is to apply AP or IB scores, generally from tests taken as a senior in high school. For AP scores, we're generally looking for 4s and 5s, and with IB scores, 6s and 7s. Each language department is going to, each year, make a determination about how much, if any, credit they will give for these scores toward completing the proficiency requirement. And so the best information on that will be found online under those specific language departments. The other approach that students can take if they want to move out of the language requirement outside of English as quickly as possible is to take a placement exam offered by that language department. And that placement exam will either place you further along or potentially out of that requirement, depending on how proficient you are within that language. Within our degree requirements, we also have, in addition to the depth component defined by the major, we have a breadth component, which is sometimes known as general education. We have identified 6 broad intellectual areas that we refer to as foundational disciplines. We require you to take at least 2 classes in each of those 6 areas for a total of 12 out of the 45 required for the degree. These 6 areas span the full range of the arts and sciences. In addition to the requirements I've noted so far, we also have an overlay requirement. The overlay requirement consists of 2 courses that all students need to take. One of those classes will be centered on the United States, and the second will have a global focus. There'll be multiple classes that satisfy this requirement. That'll be a decision that you make, but students need to satisfy both the US and the global overlay requirements as part of the classes that they're taking. Students in the Weinberg College also satisfy our general education distribution requirements. These are known as our foundational disciplines. We have identified 6 of these disciplinary areas, and students must take 2 classes in each of these 6 areas for a total of 12 out of the 45 required for the degree. These 6 areas are the natural sciences, empirical and deductive reasoning, the social and behavioral sciences, historical studies, ethical and evaluative thinking, and literature and fine arts. So again, students need to take 2 classes in each of these 6 areas for a total of 12 out of the 45 required for the degree. Now, there are hundreds of classes that satisfy each of these areas, and so I think it's important to understand that this is not a core curriculum. There are universities in the United States that have a core, meaning that students must take particular classes that are required of all students. At the other end of that spectrum would be institutions that don't have any requirements for undergraduates outside of the major. Northwestern and the Weinberg College really falls in the middle of that spectrum. What we've said is that we've defined broad areas in which you have to take classes, but there are hundreds of classes that satisfy those. And really, all the things that I've mentioned so far are things that one would hope to find within a really strong liberal arts college setting. Small classes, broad course offerings, intensive advising, and so on. But of course, Northwestern is also a major research university. And I think it's important to understand that in addition to everything you'll be getting from the liberal arts college setting within Weinberg College, you'll also have the opportunities to engage in research and partake of the research university that surrounds you as a Northwestern undergraduate. So in general, both at the university level and in the college level, there are 3 main types of undergraduate research opportunities that come with funding. This would consist of academic year grants, conference presentation grants, and summer research grants. Whether they're awarded by the university or the college, these are opportunities for students to engage in research during the academic year or to present at conferences or to do work during the summer quarter where they are being supported with some university funds and also are being supported with academic advising in the form of a faculty advisor in any of these cases. In recent years, the college has awarded in excess of $500,000 to undergraduate students every year in support of their undergraduate research activities. And the university has provided several $1,000,000 in support every year of undergraduate research activities. And so there's a great deal of support for students. And I think that one of the things that's important to note is that while it might be difficult to get into Northwestern, once you're here, it's generally fairly easy, assuming you have faculty support and well-developed ideas. And the faculty can help you develop those ideas. It's generally easy to get support in order to pursue your research interests. And that research experience really can be an integral part of our undergraduate experience. And indeed, sometimes it is the capstone for students. And we think that can be a great way to finish up your senior year, especially if you choose to write a senior thesis and really get the most out of your undergraduate experience. I hope that you've learned something about the undergraduate experience, at least as it relates to academics within the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. The Office of Undergraduate Admission at Northwestern offers both digital and in-person, in addition to recorded information sessions like this one. And we encourage you to check our calendar to see if there are additional opportunities for you to either visit virtually or in person, which we would very much welcome. So thank you for your time and your attention.